It's results day, so GCSE exam results. Many families up and down the country are feeling the same as you as parents. It's that anticipation, that excitement, that nervousness you feel for your son or your daughter. You know how much they've worked, you know how much they want to achieve going into the next stage of their life. So of course there's a whole mix of emotions going on. So what I want to share with you is very important because it's what not to say if your child's GCSE results are disappointing, or perhaps what they weren't expecting. So perhaps they were expecting a certain result in order to get to sixth form college or an apprenticeship or anything like that, and they didn't quite get the results that you or they were expecting. And communication is a key element to be able to manage emotions. It's what I teach kids all the time about. Communication is key to managing emotions and perhaps overreaction or sadness, anxiety, etc. So what I'm going to do is share with you a few examples of what not to say, and then some helpful tips on the kinds of things to make sure that it doesn't create an overreaction, because let's face it, there is going to be a huge mix of emotions going on for both you and them. So when we have any kind of emotion or expectation, nervousness, anxiety, quite often what happens is that our breathing changes, and therefore it creates a busy brain or a racing mind. Now, when that happens, we don't necessarily think clearly through our level of communication. So whether it's the words we use, it's the tone we use, or the inclination of the message that we convey to somebody else can quite easily get lost in translation, shall we say. So you might mean it in one way, they might then take it in another. And of course, with that whole turbulence of emotion going on, it's quite easy for those messages to get mixed up. And so here's the first thing. So your son or daughter is opening their exam results or getting the message, however they're going to receive it. And then all of a sudden the realization that they haven't quite got the results that they were expecting. So whether it's a lower result or it's a very low result compared to their mocks and everything else that was expected, then something not to say is, oh well, never mind, it doesn't matter. Well, for them it does. And let's face it, for you it does, of course. You're feeling what they're feeling. But saying, oh, it doesn't matter, well, it does. At that moment when they're feeling a whole mix of disappointment, failure, worthlessness, all those kind of things, saying something like that can actually make it worse. So it's best to allow them to absorb the information in front of them rather than being too quick to try and reassure or provide some level of communication in one way or another. We're in a society now where it's instantaneous. You get a bip on your phone, or you get some kind of social media notification coming in. We're instantly reactive now in the society. So sometimes we need that space to take a step back mentally and maybe physically, just to allow that time to absorb the information and the realization of perhaps the scores that they've got in front of them. Another thing not to say is, oh, what did their best friend, the name of their best friend, or perhaps some of their other peers get? Now that is really unhelpful, because what your child will start feeling is being judged, or you're comparing them to one of their friends or their peers, and that of course just makes the situation and how they're feeling much worse. They perhaps feel even more feelings of worthlessness. There is a certain expectation that they have on themselves, but there's also a certain expectation they feel from you, whether naturally or whether through your whole sort of lifestyle. To give you an example, some really highly academic students and pupils that I've coached in the past have realised that a lot of the pressures come from the parents. The parents want them to do so well to carry on the family business or to carry on the family vocation, such as doctor, dentist, physician, whatever it might be. So, of course, the pressure in those circumstances is even greater. Another thing, you won't be going to college or sixth form then. And again, that comes from a natural overreaction. It's almost like the mouth is working quicker than the brain, and therefore things start getting blurted out. And once they're out, it's very difficult to be able to take back in any way. They can sting and they can last a long time. The echoes in the head of your son or daughter. It's a bit like if you imagine toothpaste in a tube, or once you've squeezed the toothpaste out the tube, you can't like put it back in. So it's very similar to that. So you have to, what I class and teach young people, mind your language, and it's meant in that clearest sense. Be careful what you say and how you say it. And then lastly, how do you feel? Well, maybe they don't actually know how they feel at that time. Maybe it's like it's a shock, or it's fear, or it's anxiety, or it's a mix of different things, or maybe they just feel numb. So asking them to express how they're feeling immediately after they've got the results can be unhelpful. It can be something that maybe they would answer back, well, I don't know. And then which you might then say, well, do you feel this or do you feel that? It's almost like they're feeling crowded. They're feeling claustrophobic by that whole mix of emotions that they're feeling at that point. So, of course, that's what not to say, but here's some helpful tips on what to say or how to manage the situation if your child has not got the results that they're expecting, or perhaps got some really disappointing results, maybe even results that appear that they failed in particular subjects. But all is not lost. This is just the first stage of the next stage of their life. It's not the be all and end all. And as I coach young people, that there are so many options now available to young people. There's things like portfolio careers that we never experienced before, which is a mix of different industries and skills that they can use. So it's not all over. At the moment they get the results, of course, it feels like maybe their whole world has crashed in compared to all the effort they've put over the last few years. So here's something that's helpful. I'm, or we're, depending on your family situation, very proud of all your efforts that you've put in over your exam period. And we want what's best for you. So this helps to take the pressure off. They're feeling just lots of different things, or maybe nothing, as I've just described. So first of all, they want to just have some kind of reassurance, but not being crowded. So the fact that you're just letting them know that you're there for them, and what's most important is them in this circumstance. Align with their feelings. I know you're feeling disappointed. I know you're not feeling great, but I want you to know I'm here for you. We want to make sure that emotions are not hidden. They're not skirted over. They're not pretended that they're not there. Let's not pretend the situation. Let's get real and say, you're disappointed. I can understand that. You're feeling this, you're feeling that, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling afraid, you're feeling lots of different things. That's natural. We want to make sure we're not hiding those emotions or pretending they're not there. But equally, we want to make sure that we're not being controlled by those emotions. So it's likely that in private, they might cry, they might get angry, they might get a mix of different things. But also then we want to make sure that that is not going to control the next few days, new weeks and months, and also the next stage of their life. You're much more than the scores on that piece of paper. Now, through schools and peer pressure and just general life pressure, it almost feels like for that young person, your son or daughter, that is the only thing that is important. But actually, academically, well, maybe they're not so strong, or maybe they're just not strong enough in terms of recalling information when they need to, which is really what exams are about. Maybe they're better on projects or in sport or art or being creative. There's so much more to young people and so much more to your child than just those scores on a piece of paper. But it does have meaning behind it, and I understand that. And it's right to go through that together, to understand it together, and the next stage of what can happen next. Although it's not what you're expecting, there are still different options, so let's explore them together. This helps your son or daughter to feel that they're not in it alone. They're not able, or they're not having to figure it all out on their own, what to do next, where to go, who to speak to. You're there for them. And just having that reassurance can make a huge difference. It takes the pressure off them, and it also means that you're in it together. You're going to explore the different options and take time over it once the emotion has settled. And then something that perhaps many parents don't think about: what would you like me to do or say to help you through this? Now that puts it back on them to give you the understanding of what they need. You might think you know what they need, as in saying things or doing things or organising, whether that's a commiseration party or a family meal, or they're going out with friends. You might think you know what they need, but ask them. That's really important. Do they need time just to process this? And so give them time and space. Do they need to talk about it? So be there and really listen. So turn off your social media, turn off your phone, really be there with them and listen. And lastly, what's important is you. So even if your best friend or your peers got higher, that's okay. It's not about them, it's about you, and how we then move to the next stage of what options are open for you, and maybe what adventures this is going to open up for you. So I hope you found that really helpful. Some simple tips on what not to say and helpful guidance on how to manage if your child has not got the results that either you or they were expecting. This is a really important time for young people, so please like, share and comment on this video. And if you know other parents going through this, then please share it with them. Some really useful tips that will help manage the emotion regardless of the results. CHAMPS Academy has a mission to inspire and empower 1 million children and teens by 2020. So we need your help. So if you like what you see, please share, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get much more information and helpful tips to help your child or teenager. And of course, if you'd like to inspire the next generation of young people, then we need more CHAMPS Academy coaches. So get in touch to discover how you can become a CHAMPS Academy coach.